Hello and good afternoon, WKNC listeners. I am K-Sensitive, also known as Kara, here with my co-host, Atomic Man, or Daniel, and a very, very special guest, the 14th Chancellor of NC State, Chancellor Woodson, or DJ Ziggy.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're just going to, this next hour is going to be very special. We're interviewing the Chancellor. We have some of his favorite tracks that we're going to play throughout the interview. And we're just going to kick it off.
Yeah. So, Chancellor Woodson.
Yeah.
We met through your bag lunch program, and and we got to talking about music tastes, and I noticed that you were listing off a lot of bands that I'm really interested in that I play on the show. So I just thought it'd be interesting to have you on here and just talk about your life and I was reading about how you grew up in Arkansas, and I was interested, how did little Randy Woodson in Arkansas get involved with music?
Yeah, well, for me, growing up in the 60s and early 70s, music was a big part of my life. And like a lot of young guys, I wanted to play guitar, and I wanted to be a guitar legend.
Yeah.
I wasn't. But the good news is I had a dad who was a great supporter, and one day he comes home from a business trip, and he has an electric guitar he had bought at a pawn shop in Mississippi.
Wow.
For me and I was 11 years old. So I started playing guitar 11, 12 years old, and it has always been a big part of my life. So music, it was a great time musically too. All times are, but growing up in the late 60s and early 70s, there's some amazing bands that I followed, and my parents let me rock out in the bedroom upstairs and weren't too intrusive to my habits musically.
Okay.
That's as far as I'll go there.
So what was one of the first albums you bought with your own money?
Yeah, but with my own money, I remember it very fondly. So there was a soul or R&B singer in the late 60s named Wilson Pickett. In the Midnight Hour, Mustang Sally. I mean, go back and look. These are some great tracks. And he came out with a recording with the album named from the Beatles, Hey Jude. And so the first album I bought with my own money was $3.99 at the Sterling Five and Dime store in Fordyce, Arkansas, and it was Hey Jude by Wilson Pickett.
Wow.
Well, we'll be playing that later, so we will.
When you play
it,
listen carefully, because there was a famed studio in Alabama called Muscle Shoals, where an amazing amount of great music came out of it. And the house band in Muscle Shoals in the late 60s was led by a guitarist named Dwayne Allman, who went on to found the Allman Brothers Band. And he played the lead guitar on Hey Jude. And with all deference to the Beatles, it's a phenomenal recording of that song. So that's the first album I bought.
All right, and before the music, we'll just ask you a few quick-fire questions, so just answer in a sentence or less. If you could write a song with any artist, who would it be?
Yeah, it would be with Van Morrison, because he's always been, he's consistently recorded great music from the 60s until today, and he's always been inspired by a jazz element to his music, but his lyrics are phenomenally introspective. I mean, he's a great lyricist. He's also over the years had his struggles with the music industry, but he would be the one that I would love to. I mean, I wouldn't be able to write with him, but I would love to see how he does it. Throw a song, a word in there.
Yeah, and we're also going to play some of Van Morrison today. Yeah, and so second question: first and or favorite live show?
So this is a band that probably no one has ever heard of, but me. I drove all the way to Dallas, Texas, to see Blue Oyster Cult and Uriah Heep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're awesome. I love them.
Yeah. So that was in 1973.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was a great show. I saw many, though. But, yeah, that was one that stands out for me.
And then last question, if you could see any artist or band dead or alive or broken up, who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the Grateful Dead again. I saw them several times in the late 70s, and just a phenomenal show. It's sort of like the current jam band craze in that their show was always more than their music. It was the audience as much, and all the people around the performance. So that would be someone I'd love to see. Some are alive and one's dead, but it's not the same.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think without further ado, I'm going to play a Grateful Dead track. This is Morning Dew. Is this one of your favorites?
Yep.
Is it? Okay, great.
It is.
All right, so this is Morning Dew by the Grateful Dead on WKNC. And we are back with Chancellor Woodson. I am Kara, here with my co-host Daniel. You just heard the Grateful Dead. The song was Morning Dew. And I know right before we played that track, you said it was one of your favorites.
Yeah. It's, I was saying to Daniel, one of the reasons I love the Grateful Dead is because, their shows, but also as a musician, I love the chord changes that Jerry Garcia used in a lot of his songs, and it makes it easy to do a lot of interesting guitar licks over them. So, always a great show, though. Great musicians.
And I know you said your parents really didn't interfere with like your taste in music. Did they influence it at all? Like, where did you get most of your taste from?
Maybe negatively in the beginning, because I definitely was not a big fan of my father's music, and it was old country music. But as I got older and got into sort of Americana and bluegrass and really old Americana music, I found that some of his music wasn't that bad, actually.
Yeah.
One of his, early on, he loved Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and old country singers like that. And I became a fan later.
Yeah.
But not originally.
Yeah, it always works out like that.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
But he would, he's still alive. So, but when I would play, occasionally when I was playing the guitar, he would wander into the room and say, actually, that sounds good. But mostly it was like, what are you doing?
So given how your taste in music evolved and how, looking back at your father's taste, you actually, decided to like it. What do you think the best era of music has been so far in your lifetime?
Yeah. So I missed a lot of musical eras. So let me start by saying there was a dark period in my musical experience, and it was largely the period when I was in graduate school in the late 70s, early 80s, through sort of early parenting, kids, all that sort of stuff. So for me, a period of music I constantly go back to is the late 60s and early 70s. And currently, I'm really attracted to a lot of alternative and Americana. One of my, I own everything, the Avett Brothers, the Luminaires.
Oh,
and,
great.
so I listen to some new music, but I will say I don't know a lot about new music.
Mm-hmm. Do you keep up with like local artists at all, like the Avett Brothers or
of course.
outside of Charlotte?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, just watched, they recorded a documentary that's on, I think, HBO now that I just watched the other night. And there's a local connection to it. Two members of their band live here in Raleigh.
Yeah.
Joe Quam, the cellist, and the bass player, whose name I've lost right now. lives here in Raleigh.
Yeah, Raleigh's got a great scene.
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
does.
yeah. But
I don't get out into it very much.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot of newer age bluegrass. Like there's a band out of Chapel Hill, Mandolin Orange.
Oh yeah,
That's
they're great.
all-time favorite of mine. I like Mipso, which is another sort of harder edge bluegrass. A band out of San Francisco called Front Country. That's a driving bluegrass band. That's fantastic. So that tends to be. So there's a lot of new music that I'm really inspired by, but probably not what a lot of your listeners listen to.
I know we've played definitely the Avett Brothers, definitely Mipso, Mandolin Orange. Yeah, KNC seems big into those.
I say that acknowledging that in both cases the band members are Carolina grads. So we'll just get that out there.
Yeah, we respect our neighbors.
Yeah, particularly when they produce talented musicians.
Good for them. So right before we get into this next track, one quick question: do you have a timeless classic album? Is there one album that has just stuck with you forever?
Yes, I do, and I've already mentioned this name, so I'm going to repeat myself. But for me, the timeless album is Van Morrison Moondance.
Okay.
It's got, so that was recorded in 1969, maybe 70. And it's got, some songs on it like Caravan, which is an all-time great live performance song. Moondance, of course, and Crazy Love, which if you want to think about the love of your life, it's a great song.
We'll get into it. Well, we're going to take a quick air break right after we play Hey Jude by Wilson Pickett.
Okay.
Keep it locked.
Hello, WKNC listeners. This is Atomic Man, a.k.a. Daniel, here with Case Sensitive, also known as Kara, and Chancellor Woodson, who's going by DJ Ziggy.
You want to explain that really quickly?
Well, gosh, I mean, you put me on the spot, having to come up with a name quickly.
We did. We should have given you a couple weeks' notice.
And I grew up a huge David Bowie fan, so Ziggy Stardust and the whole, so I came up with it quick, So I'm happy to be Ziggy.
Yeah.
Also known as Chancellor, also known as Randy, or the guy walking across the campus.
So I'd like to ask you, I think you have a very unique experience in that, you went from playing in a rock band to doing research and then to leading businesses, and now you're the chancellor. So, I'm just interested, at glimpses of what was the world like, as you transitioned from one position to the other.
Yeah. Well, let's just be clear. I never made a living playing music, and actually never had a view that I would, but it's always been a part of my life. And so, in the college experience, friends of mine, we played music together, and sometimes a little money was involved, but never. But music has always been a way for me to make friends, to connect with people, and to, enjoy something that's a distraction from being a scientist or an administrator. But there have been periods, as I said earlier, in my life where it was more difficult for me to stay connected to music just because of things going on. But Daniel, as I was telling you earlier, when just like my father bought me a guitar when I was 11, I bought my son a guitar.
Yeah.
And when there was a guitar in the house and he was learning, it got me back into it. And actually it got me into it in a way where, I actually learned how to play it the right way. Mm-hmm. As a kid playing rock and roll music, you're just 3 chords and a bunch of dust. But there's a wonderful thing about the internet. You have the ability to learn a lot.
Pretty much anything, yeah.
Yeah, and so I've become a better musician actually by getting started later in life again. But throughout all this time, I've been able to balance being a leader of a university or a college or whatever I was doing at the time with enjoying music. And I've always found people to play with, and that's true today.
Yeah, so I heard a rumor that the same people that you still jam with, that you're jamming with, right now, those are the same people that you were jamming with back in the day, or?
No, that's a rumor. No, because back in the day I was jamming in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and now I'm in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So when I moved here, people started writing stories about my background, and there was always music in there that I played the guitar or whatever. And so a few people reached out to me that I have gotten to know over the years. And so every Sunday afternoon, a bunch of older men and a 15-year-old fiddle player gets together and plays music every Sunday afternoon. And it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's an awesome ritual. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm actually, that's funny you mentioned that, because I'm also trying to start that with my friends. So it's interesting that,
Until our violin player came along, I was the youngest member of the band. So that'll give you a sense of the age distribution.
And you mentioned that your son was the one that got you back into music, and you were mentioning earlier how your son also had taken all of your, your vinyl records. And so I'm interested, like, what do you think about, like, how, things like, these 70s, these 80s sounds are coming back, and like technology, from back then are also coming back, like vinyls, resurging. So
I'll give you a funny story. When we used to do the family trip and in the minivan kind of thing, and my wife and I are throwing in CDs or cassettes or whatever it was at the time of 70s music, and my kids, particularly my son, who fancied himself the big musician, used to really, just slam our taste in music. And now I go over to his house and that's all he's playing.
Yeah.
Right? So he's, I think that, I don't know, that's a natural evolution. But, for example, we were offline, we were talking about some local bands that I like. Mm-hmm. And actually, two of those bands were introduced to me by my kids. Mm-hmm. So, it comes full circle.
Yeah, it does.
But I did get my vinyl back because my wife got me a turntable for Christmas, and I brought those back home, repatriated the albums.
All right, the next track that we're going to play is actually a vinyl that I took from my mother a couple months ago. This is Jackson Browne. The song is Doctor My Eyes. Do you like this one?
I do.
All right.
Anything Jackson Browne.
Yeah, all right. Without further ado, this is Jackson Browne, only on WKNC.
This is Atomic Man Case Sensitive here with DJ Ziggy, Chancellor Woodson. So we were talking about vinyl, and we were having some interesting conversations, I guess something to start off with, is there one, like, vinyl that you're questing after, one particular,
that I had years ago and lost?
Or something that you just want and that it's hard to find?
Yeah, that's, that's a good question. There's a lot missing from my collection that, with multiple moves over the years and children coming in and taking things at will. So there's a large part of my collection that seems to have disappeared. And there are a few, for example, I had an early, one of the, not the first, but right when the Beatles' White Album came out, that was one of my special collection. I have no idea where it is.
Oh, man.
And I want it back. So if any of my kids are listening and they have it, I'm going to find it.
Yeah. And you're also talking about, like, the differences between owning music digitally versus, owning the vinyl. What do you miss about, that era of, like, collecting vinyls, and what's something that you appreciate about, the the new way of doing things.
Yeah, the main thing I miss is having something tangible in your hand to read and look at during the listening of the music. And, back in the day, I would get a new vinyl, a new album, and pull out the vinyl and put it on the turntable, but then spend all the time interacting with the music and the printed material. And as I was saying to you earlier, I miss the fact that I don't know, or it's not as easy to discover what went into making the song, who's recording it, who's playing what instrument, who's singing backup, all the things that were typically in the liner notes of the vinyl, you don't see, or at least it's more difficult to see. Mm-hmm. So I miss that part of. I felt like you interacted with the artist more thoroughly than you do just in listening to their music, mm-hmm. by really reading what they've written for you.
Right. Yeah. Now, because we have like streaming services and things like that, it's so easy to listen to just a single of an artist. But yeah, with vinyl, you are committed to the entire album.
Yeah, you are. Or at least it takes an act of some energy to get up off the couch and go change it.
Right. Yeah. You can't. It's harder to pick and choose.
But having said that, I wouldn't give up what we have now for anything, because mm-hmm. Using services, Spotify, others to have constant streaming music and just all of the examples that come before you. I get introduced to a lot of good music by that kind of service, and I used to, and still do, I'm sure, by the radio as well. But when you think about albums, I don't know, it just was a more intense experience for me to put a new record on the turntable and look at all of the material. And back in the day, when I was buying a lot of albums, the art was amazing.
Yeah.
Right? All of these bands had amazing art associated with their recordings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the accessibility factor of streaming is a huge deal now.
The what?
The accessibility factor of just being able to stream. And
but even then, it's cool to see that there's a lot of bands that are still putting out vinyls, and sure. People are demanding it too, and maybe they both can coexist because they serve different purposes.
Well, they are coexisting, and vinyl's experiencing a major resurgence, mm-hmm. And it's the only challenge is that with radio and with streaming services, so many of us have given up our big bulky stereos mm-hmm. that we use with a turntable and with CD and with cassette and everything back from the day, that we got to go back and get some of those devices.
Yeah.
Do we think cassettes are ever going to come back? As big as vinyls?
Hey, we haven't even talked about 8-track.
No, yeah.
I had a 1973 Vega with an amazing 8-track cassette deck in it. And you had to carry your music in the car, you had to have a trailer behind your car, because 8-track was a bad period in the music industry.
So you're not anticipating or excited about that coming back?
I'm not.
No. Okay. What about the Walkman?
The Walkman.
I had a Walkman in elementary school, and it was kind of bulky. I don't know.
No, I think we're good now. We don't need any of that.
Just the digital and the vinyl were good.
That's all vinyl at home, digital on the road.
All right. There it is. All right. We're going to play a couple more tracks now. Next up is Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Not Jefferson Starship. I know you said you did not like the...
They went off the grid for me when Jefferson Airplane broke up.
All right. So this is Jefferson Airplane, Somebody to Love on WKNC. When the truth is found. All right. And we are back with Chancellor Woodson. I just wanted really quickly, before our interview's up at 5, just wanted to ask about, were there any styles of music that you were kind of excited to see fade out of the mainstream? Yeah,
without a doubt. And this may be because of my age and my generation, but I just could not stand disco. And it was so frustrating for me to see bands that I had admired bow to that pressure. Even the Rolling Stones, for gosh sakes, move toward, at least briefly, a disco theme.
What is it that you don't like about it?
It made no sense. I mean, I guess, I like to dance as much as the next person, but it was just seemed so contrived. And, so there was nothing musically exciting about it for me.
Wow, okay.
I'm pretty clearly
throwing down the gauntlet.
It affected me in a very traumatic way.
Yeah, you didn't even have to think about that one.
But I'm
just
over
disco.
it. I'm over it because, seeing Saturday Night Fever once was enough.
But
right. The Bee Gees, who recorded a lot of that soundtrack before Saturday Night Fever and before disco, were actually some of their early work was really quite phenomenal. So don't write me about the Bee Gees.
You were talking earlier about, your newly discovered passion for blues. What like attracts you to the blues?
Yeah, well, it's only new in that I've actually listened to the blues a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was all early rock, was inspired by the blues. So if you think about, Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and some of the great guitarists that I admired, so much of their work was inspired by the blues.
Right.
But more recently, there's some phenomenal young musicians, and Gary Clark Jr. is somebody that's come to Raleigh several times. He's from Austin and a phenomenal guitarist. The blues, and for me, the blues were something that was an easy, not that it's easy, but it's an easier genre to master as you learn to play the guitar, because the minor pentatonic scale for the guitarist out there is something that, you can master fairly quickly, and then just learning the technique. So blues has always been something that I play late at night with the headphones on so as not to disturb my wife.
That's so nice and respectful.
I'm a very kind man.
I think everyone could tell.
Yeah. That's the way you stay married 38 years. Put your headphones on.
Everyone take note. And one last question. I know I asked you this earlier. No pressure to respond.
Yeah. If
you had a personal anthem, what would it be?
Yeah, you really put me on the spot with this one, case sensitive. And this isn't a particularly inspiring song to a lot of people, but it helps me to focus when I need to focus. And it's a song written by Jackson Browne, but made famous by the Eagles, called "Take It Easy." That's it.
All right, that was it. I wasn't sure if you were gonna have a solid answer, but yeah, that's good.
Well, you gave me a few minutes to think about it, and I thought about it.
I gave you an hour, just so we're clear.
Well, there's 60 minutes in an hour.
Full disclosure, yeah.
When you're 61, an hour is a short period of time because it tends to move quickly.
All right. Chancellor Woodson's personal anthem, "Take It Easy" by Jackson Browne, made popular by the Eagles.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, it is about 5 p.m., so our time here is up. Chancellor Woodson, thank you so much for coming in. This was awesome. We had a great time.
It's been fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
And we're going to close out.
Atomic Man.
And we're going to close out with the song "I'm a Woman" by Deborah Coleman, only on WKNC. Thanks again, Chancellor Woodson.
Thank you.